So let's now have a look at the data migration. And data migration is, of course, a very important process when setting up a new company, because there can be quite a lot of data that you want to migrate. The typical master data, such as vendors, customers, items, but maybe you also want to migrate fixed assets. You maybe want to migrate employees and so on. So each table that we have available in NAV can be included in the data migration process. Let's have a look at how we can do this. So first of all, the tables should of course be included in my package. And if I open here my existing package, you can see a number of tables that we probably would like to migrate. So we have a customer, a vendor, an item table, and so on. Now let's focus on the customer table as an example. So we see that currently we don't have any customers, which is quite normal. So we didn't already imported customer data. We haven't created customers manually, so no customer records at all. So let's look at customer as an example. So before we can import the customer information, first we need to define the fields that we should include in Excel, so the fields that have to be imported. And that's something that we can do by clicking on Table and going to Fields. And by selecting here the different fields in the Include field column, we can specify everything that should be included. Of course, a number should be included, a name should be included, the address information, and so on. You see, so very easy to specify which fields should be included. Now you see that some fields are not included, and that's because our demo company already performed this task in the configuration worksheet before creating the file. So before creating your package file, you can already perform this task. You can prepare everything here, and you will see that it's then included in that way in your configuration package file, as you can see. So you see the fields that are included and also the ones that are not included. So if I scroll down a little bit, you can see the currency code, for example. You can see customer price group, language code. Now, this is all very important information for customers. Why is it not included in my in my Excel definition, as you can see here? Well, that's of course because we will combine here the import with the data template. Remember, in one of the previous lessons, we had a look at data templates. And if I show you again, all these fields are included in the data template. So the currency code is included, the language code, the customer price group, and so on. So this is all information which is included here in the data template, which means that we don't need to include it in the Excel file. And for that reason, Kronos already said that we don't need to include the currency code, the language code, and so on. You see? So very important. Now what we also can do is enable or disable the validate trigger. So by default, if there is a table relation, the system will check, of course, if what we are importing exists in the underlying table. So for example, we can see here that the validate field is enabled here for the city. So it will validate the postcode, for example. Does the postcode exist when entering the city? And if the postcode doesn't exist, we will of course get a validation error. Now in some cases it might be interesting to disable the validate trigger. If you know, for example, in advance that the records of the underlying table are not imported yet, then you might want to say that you don't want to validate. So I will import the postcodes on a later stage, which means that if I would like, if I'm enabling the validate trigger, I will get a lot of validation errors. And to prevent this, I can remove the field here, so disable the validate trigger. Okay, so let's now have a look. If I now click on OK, I can now export to Excel. So, and one table has been selected, which means that you can also select multiple tables if you want. I can click on Yes. So, and here you can now see the Excel file. This is of course an empty file because we don't have any customer records yet in our new company. Otherwise they also would have been exported. But again, now it's empty. And the idea is that we start filling the Excel file now, which you can do manually. I will create one example manually here. But in real life, you can also use, of course, copy functions, copy paste, import, export, and so on. So suppose that I would like to import one customer. So I will call them training customer. So let me just enter an address, and so on. So there you go. For this example, this is okay, but of course you would have to enter all the required information that you want to include for the customer in all these different fields. Also notice that by hovering over the fields, you can also see the type of field and also the field length, which is very useful in real life because sometimes the data that you get presented from your new customer might contain too long names, addresses that are too long, and so on, which means that you have to cut it off, for example, in Excel. So let me save this. So this is my customer table that I would like to migrate. So I will call it customer migration. There we go. So I will now close it. I will go back to NAV, and now we can import. So that's something I will do by clicking on Excel and then import from Excel. I will select my customer migration Excel that I just saved, and there we go. So everything is now imported. But remember my remark in the topic on the questionnaires, well, the same goes here. So the customer doesn't already exist in the customer table, as you can see here. So we don't have a database record yet. What we do have is a package record. So now it's in the intermediate RapidStart table, you could say. So by clicking now here on 1, you can see the information on this customer. So you recognize the number, the name, the address I have entered, and so on. So this, first of all, will allow me to check the data, and if there would be any errors, I can have a look at the error. In this case, it seems that the record is not invalid, which means that I can try to apply the data. So let's do this, and the fact that the line is removed here means that the application is successful. And now you can see that I have one database record. So now if I click here, you can see that I have indeed one customer with name training customer. Let's go and look at the customer card. So I will click on Edit, and you see that besides the information that I entered manually in Excel, such as the number, the name, the address, what you can see here, and so on, you also see that we also have other fields, like for example the general business posting group, the VAT business, the customer posting group, and so on. There's a finite charge term, we have a payment term, and that's of course the information that is included, that is contained in the data template, you see? Because if I now go back to my package, you can see that there's a data template entered here, and all the information included in the data template is now applied to the one customer that I have imported, you see? So that's using the combination of the two. So the information, the variable information that I have entered in Excel, and the fixed information that is included in the data template. So in that way, you can import your master data as efficient as possible.